GM, we do a little fam. If you're hearing this, that means our season 3 mint is officially over. During the past 2 weeks, all of our premium editions were minted out, and the support has been insane. We'd love to thank Clutch and NorCalGuy for kicking off the frenzy, and everyone who minted one shortly after. We have Arsonic and Mrs. Arsonic, Shakai, Snowfro, Guppy, Art Pleb, Satoshi's Mom, Ambrosia, Cole, Old School 711, Wizard 98, and Brian Brinkman. Thank you all so much. And without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. In our 11th and final episode of Season 3, we are joined by a modern-day Renaissance man, Ovie Faruq, aka OSF. OSF is a well-known professional trader, art collector, artist, golfer, fighter, and talk show host, among other things. There's nothing this man cannot do. We dive into OSF's background growing up in England, how he met Mando, how he got into crypto and NFTs, his journey from artist to collector and back, how he pulled off one of the biggest Bored Ape trades of the cycle, portfolio allocation thoughts, and so much more. As always, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Any deeds and guests may own NFTs discussed.
This is Andy.
Yeah, I'm Pegz.
GM, everybody. We're back again with another episode of We Do a Little Pod. This time we're joined by OSF. OSF is a long list of things amongst being a trader, a project founder, an artist, a soccer player, and many other things. Investor, collector, just overall deeply ingrained in the NFT space, Chad. So without further ado, OSF, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. It's nice to be in a cool place.
Having a hell of a week.
Yeah.
Dude, every fucking day I'm like, Deez, what are you doing today? He goes, well, I'm going to another OSF event. I'm like, what's going on here?
So we'll just jump into it. You've had a hell of a busy week. How did you end up getting involved with everything this week? Like, I feel like 3-4 nights out of the week you had events.
It's been a lot. I think we always want to do like a RektGuy event in NYC, and that's when we did the first one last year.
Yeah, the box.
Yeah, it's just a cool venue where it's like slightly different, and it's not just the same like
Slightly different.
Slightly different is maybe an understatement.
Yeah. I watched things be done with corn dogs that I did not know could be done with corn dogs.
Yeah. Mrs. D said she was put off for corn dogs for life. So
yeah, we used to have like an emergency thing of frozen corn dogs in the freezer, like, you know,
you'll move on to like chicken nuggets or something.
You know,
just
when
something
you just
different.
have like a meal in there that like you don't really want to eat, but there might be a night where it's bad enough that it's like, oh fuck, it's corn dog night. Like, it's never gonna be corn dog night after that. But you choose the box that's known for its, you know, slightly different vibes.
Yeah.
Other things, like you got involved in a soccer tournament.
Unfortunately got injured
some
as well.
Battle scars, like that looks like you were fighting, like in a UFC fight.
Yeah, New York City's tough, man, you know?
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm not a very aggressive person in normal life. Like, I'm pretty chilled out and laid back. I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll go with the flow. But when it turns to sports, I just like, something flips in me and I get like super competitive. And I used to play a lot of soccer or football, as we call it, growing up, and I played at university and stuff. So there's like a Web3 FC tournament. So I was like, yeah, like, we're going to get a team. And we had a RektGuy team. I was like, everyone who wants to play, let me know if you want to play, but like, rank yourself from 1 out of 5, from like
good to
your ability, experience, fitness, and then I like picked all the teams that way. So I like, took it really seriously. I told Mando, I was like, look, get your game on. Like, I did a whole like team talk before. And
was Mando on the team too?
Mando's on the team. Mando got injured too, actually.
Of course. Is he good?
Yeah, Mando's decent. He's actually a very good goalkeeper.
Okay.
But he's got a good left foot as well. So.
Right.
So have you been playing soccer your whole life?
Yeah, pretty much my whole life. I've been. I love sports really, and that's probably that and cricket, which is also a very English sport. The two things I played my whole life, but I've done sports too.
Did you grow up in England?
I grew up in England. Yeah, I was born in Cambridge in England, which is like a small university town, probably like an hour out of London. So I was born there. My parents are from Bangladesh originally, so I'm like a second generation immigrant, I guess. But yeah, I was born there, grew up there. I lived in London for about 8 years, 3 years at university, 5 years working there, and I lived in NYC for 3 years, and moved back to London, and that's where I am now.
Nice. Still holding it down. You're
Yeah.
not.
When
making
did you leave New York City?
2021. 2018 to 21 is when I was here, so I spent all of COVID in NYC.
Same. It was fun. It was like as fun as like we were bored for it, but I do think that there's a certain like there was a really the city was so fucking weird.
Yeah.
And so I'm not. Where were you at in the city during the time?
So I was living in the West Village, but
Okay.
our office was in Times Square.
Okay.
It's obviously like the most busiest part of NYC, and we had like the day where they told all of us to go home, work from
Yeah.
home. But I left my keyboard in the office, and we had like a special Bloomberg keyboard thing, so I had to go back to get it. And I got Ubers were still running, so I got an Uber there, and like I was driving through Times Square, and it was like empty, like not a single person there. I was like, wow, this is wild. Like,
yeah. I was on the Upper East Side for all of
Yeah.
it. I was like basically just by myself in my apartment, and it was like really weird because there was just fucking no one. And then there was this really interesting period of time in like June where it started to open up a little bit. And like before things started to get bad again and everyone's like drinking on the street, it was like this really fun time where like no one was going inside and no one really knew what was going on, but everyone just like wanted to get the fuck out of their apartment. And so I think like, you know, obviously the whole COVID side of it is not so great, but I think I'll look back on that time in New York City in like a bit of a fond way just because I'll never experience that again.
Yeah, it was insane. It
So-
was wild.
What brought you to New York City?
It was for work. Like I used to work at Barclays, which is a British bank, and the team I worked for were all American, and so they're all based in London. They all moved back eventually, and they were like, "Hey, we want to hire another trader. Do you want to move from London to NYC?" Funny story is they asked both Mando and myself, and Mando was the first choice, and he was like doing better than me at the time, so they actually wanted to hire him. But his wife didn't want to move to NYC, so then like I was like the sloppy seconds basically.
So yeah, I guess we have to ask too. Like, I think when we think of OSF, we always think of you and Mando together.
Yeah.
So when did you meet him? And like, I know you've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
But when did you meet him? And then I also want to ask about how you got into trading, like from school.
Yeah, for sure. So I met Mando. I've known him for about 10 years. I met him when we were working together at Barclays. So I'd been working there for a year. I was a junior trader, and he was like the new junior trader. And we were on the same desk, and on my desk there were just 4 traders, so it was a pretty small team.
Okay. So you were half the team, you and him.
Yeah, we were half the team. We had like 2 senior traders, 2 junior traders, and yeah, that's the first time I met him. And he was I wasn't his boss, but I could give him shit to do basically. And that's how we first met.
And then, so before that, like, where did you go to school and what were you studying to get into trading? Because I feel like trading is a kind of more of like a opaque thing. Like, people, you don't go to school for being a trader. It's normally like you have some type of skill in human psychology on top of math that, you know, you end up also being comfortable with the risk.
Yeah, I feel like everyone in college has like that one friend who's like trading options when you're a freshman in college, and I'm just like, I've never owned a stock in my life. I don't know shit about this, but like, good for you, man. And he's like, no, I trust you. I'm like, dude, I don't even know what words you're saying. Like, this is just, it's totally foreign to me.
But yeah, like, how did you become a trader?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've always been an online degen, and even before the trading stuff, I used to do like a lot of digital art online. Like I learned how to code and stuff, and then I kind of just got into like the speculative stuff online, just from like, I don't know, like watching like random YouTube stuff, like reading about certain things. So I always knew that like I was interested in that idea of like risk taking or gambling kind of stuff. And then you had the whole like credit crisis and stuff, and you know, I watched like the Wall Street film. I just like was super interested in like that world, and
Watch a Big Short.
yeah, like all that kind of stuff. And like when I was 18 or 17, I started buying my first stocks, and like, dude, the first thing I ever bought, which I actually still bag hold to this day, is a stock called Pegz, and it was up 1,700%, and I literally bought it, and it's like 25p, and it's down like 99.9% like ever since then.
Just a reminder.
Yeah, and I was like, it's like the same shit as it is now. I was on this forum called the London Stock Exchange Forum, and everyone was like, yeah, Coca-Cola are gonna buy these guys. It was like I was like 18. I was like, oh my god, like, and they're like, yeah, it's gonna go to the same price as Coca-Cola. So I was like, whoa, like I can make so much money. And like, I put in a decent amount of money. I think I put in like $3,000 into it, which when I was 18 was a lot.
That's a ton. That's
all my
Yeah.
months of work after tax and everything.
Yeah, I had 3 jobs at the time, and it was like everything I had in my bank account. I went all in, and I just watched it go lower and lower and lower. And I actually never sold it. I still own it, and it got split into like 2 different shares and stuff. And I think it's worth like, I don't know, like £100 or something like that. But
It's more of like a reminder.
it's a reminder, yeah.
It's not like, oh, I want to realize this loss and offset
Yeah,
stuff. It's
exactly.
more like, this reminds me where I came from. I feel like a lot of traders have that experience where they go all
Yeah.
in on something and just get absolutely blown up, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a mistake I learned really early
Yeah.
on, and I didn't even. You know what? I didn't even really mind. I was like, oh, like, whatever. Like, let me just move on to the next thing. And like,
Shit.
yeah, I just started punching around like spread betting and like oil and stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, yeah, I reckon it's gonna go lower, and just like short. And then it goes higher. I was like, ah, fuck.
Classic.
But like, I did that stuff really early on. I knew
Yeah.
that I knew I wanted to learn how to do it properly. So I knew I wanted to be a trader in an institutional environment. And so, what do you study for it? I just knew that I had to do something like quantitative. So I studied maths and economics. I went to a university called the London School of Economics, which is like quite well known for being a feeder into investment banks and stuff.
Nice.
So, I was one of those people that when I was like 17 or 16 or 17, I was like, I really know what I want to do when I graduate, and that was it.
That's a big advantage in life.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
I definitely was lucky with that too. Where for me, it was like, oh, I want to write code. Like I took like a class in 8th grade, and I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Like I figured it out.
I all I knew is I wanted to play video games. And then, like, tried to go pro a couple of times, just didn't work, and I'm like, just want to play games. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna get a government job and just like.
Like
Play
League of Legends
games.
is fucking sick,
Like-
man. I don't know.
Then I got
true.
really, really lucky, but it was more just like, I don't know what I want to do. And that was the thing where, like, a lot of guests we talked to, they knew, like, they either wanted to be an artist or they wanted to do this and that. Like, you're someone who is simultaneously both a good trader, but also an artist. Before you were trading 16, 17, were you also creating art? Did you always have a passion for art as well with the trading?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I have always had a passion for art, and I've always drawn a lot, painted a lot as a kid. And actually, I actually come from quite an artistic family. Like, not my parents, but both my younger brothers are very artistic. A lot of my cousins are, and a couple of them are architects, but they actually make big canvas paintings and stuff. So it's actually always been in my family, and something that I've always done in my spare time. And digital art, like when I was 13, I like made my own like skate team and forums and stuff, and like I started creating digital art and deviant art, and I just did it because like you couldn't make money out of it then, so I just did it because it was like kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't have any to get a tablet, it was like 400 or 500 quid or whatever it was. They were expensive then. I didn't have like pocket money to do that, so I'd like try and draw things with my mouse like on Photoshop, and it was just like so bad. I always remember thinking like, I could create so much better stuff because I was like good at drawing, but I couldn't do it with a mouse.
So
Yeah,
it's impossible.
I know. So I was like,
Trying to make a circle or like a
Yeah,
clean line with that
exactly.
fucking thing, and you're just shaking, and it's
exactly. It was so painful. And you make it. You try and like cut something out. You make a mistake, and you have to like restart the whole thing. I was just like, oh, it was so
you did
painful.
the fucking lasso tool.
Yes,
The
exactly.
magnetic lasso latches on to
Yeah.
a point that you thought was not possible to latch on to.
Yeah.
You misclicked, just highlighted the whole fucking thing. And now
Yeah,
you're-
exactly. It was so brutal, but I've always loved doing it. And I guess like when I turned 18 and went to university, and I kind of figured out what I wanted to do, that's where my focus went. I just really, to be honest with you, like after I turned 18, the next time I drew something or did something creative was in COVID in 2020.
Yeah.
So about like a 13 or 14 year hiatus. But you know, I want to go back. I think all my old art is on my computer back home, which is in my parents' place. So I'm going to go back. I think I remember the password to it.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's probably some
it's
weird
in
shit
here
on my computer.
somewhere. Just keep fucking beating it off the keyboard. It'll come back.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd love to go and like dig up all that old stuff. But I actually deleted my DeviantArt profile because it was attached to my name. I didn't want people to see my art because I was kind of like embarrassed by it a bit. So
I
it's all
feel that
gone.
pain. I had like an old photo bucket account.
Yeah,
where I would
so
do,
retro.
I would try to make like signatures for game battles or like
Yeah,
any
I do
forum.
the same stuff.
It would be all around like me going to YouTube, watching a tutorial, copying everything they do, like downloading the same brush pack and fucking copying how they make the clouds and copying the text, and then like I looked at it 10 years ago when I was in college and was just like, I'm nuking this. I don't ever want to see this again. And now 10 years later, I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah,
like that account, like it would have
yeah.
been fun to go back and look at it. So I hope you can find. I hope the computer still works. I'm sure if your parents are anything like mine, it's like your room might be the complete same it was.
Yeah,
when
that's
you're
kind of like my
18.
room. Yeah.
Like your
Yeah.
mom might go in and still dust it sometimes, but like everything is exactly how it was. It's like a time capsule. when you
Yeah,
walk in.
exactly. Yeah, it is weird going back there. I mean, when I visit my parents, I still sleep there.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird. I think it's now changed because I kept it the same until I got married. And then when my wife started coming up, she's like, I feel like I'm in like a 14-year-old like teenage boy's
Yeah.
room. And then my mom
Yeah,
changed
you kinda
everything. So.
That's with the wife and the family. Like, are you close to your family now? Being in London, growing up an hour away, like, do you see them pretty often?
Yeah, like it's close to where I live, so it's easy to just drive over there for the weekend and stuff. I think when I lived in NYC, it was a bit more difficult because I didn't travel back as much. And then
Did they ever come visit you?
they came to visit me once, and my mum has one of her brothers lives here. Her brother lives here. I think it was tough during COVID because the visa that I was on didn't let me leave and re-enter the US, and
That's
I
a
had
pain
to
in
like
the ass.
live here to work. And to be honest with you, that's the reason why I moved back, because even like after COVID and everything had happened, they still had these travel restrictions, and I was like, well, this sucks. Like, I literally can't go home, and they can't change my visa. I'm just basically stuck here. So for me, like, it wasn't so much that like not going home, not being able to go home for a year and a half was like bad as much as it was. It was just like I feel claustrophobic. I feel like I can't move anywhere or get out if I wanted to. And what if there was like an emergency and I had to go back and I was stuck and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
The 2021 was the year we met.
yeah,
Like,
it was the year we met.
So
yeah.
Did you move back like earlier in 2021, like before we met, or was it later in the year?
So I was in NYC until April 21. So I started my NFT stuff while I was in NYC.
Okay,
And
but I got to know you a lot better over the summer. So
over the
you
summer,
were back in London.
yeah, I was actually, I remember I was actually, my wife's from the Caribbean, so we spent a couple of months there before going back to London,
enough.
and I had some time off in between work, so I wasn't working, which was so clutch for that summer.
That was the crazy summer. That was the
yeah.
best time to
It was
not
the
be
best
working.
time ever to not be
it was,
working.
It
Yeah,
was the best. It was just, yeah, like, you kind of like count your lucky stars, and that was one of them. But I remember sitting like in the car with my like mother-in-law trying to like mint these bid on Pegz basically, and I like, had to get her to hotspot me because I didn't have any, like
fucking
Caribbean
Pegz.
Wi-Fi. I was like trying to like message D's like, which one are you going for? And I'm
we
going
had
for-
a whole thing where him and I were just like looking at Pegz, and we're like, these are clearly really good value at 1 and 2 ETH.
yeah. I remember
right?
you told me
Like,
about it too.
We're not crazy, I
Yeah.
don't think. And we're like, well, we kind of want to buy all of them, but like we don't want to buy each other's.
Yeah.
Like some we might have bid over each other on because we both really liked them, but a lot of the time it was like, all right, I'm gonna bid on these 3 or 4. You take those 3 or 4,
Yeah.
and then like if somebody else cares about these, then maybe we'll fight for them. But
Yeah.
like it was this time where it was like really.
It was really fun discussing that on the way up when we were buying them, and it was really fun to undercut each other on the
Yes,
way down.
on the way down, it's like, oh, you want 75? I'll take 69. Oh, you want 69? I'll take 42. Oh, you want 42? I'll take 9.
The race to the bottom of Pegz was fucking brutal. It was devastating. I was
And it
getting
was
people
just
like,
all of us as
yeah,
well.
I was getting people DMing me, and they were like, "Why are you listing it for so cheap?" And I was like, "If you think it's cheap, then fucking buy it, man. You think it's too cheap? Here you go. You can have it."
Oh man, that was a roller coaster. It was one of those things like at one
times.
time you're looking at like the paper value of what theoretically
Yeah,
those
man.
Pegs could be. You're like, well, it's
Yeah.
like $4 million.
Yeah, my Pegs were worth 7 figures.
Yeah.
I was like, "Holy shit, I'm a genius."
Yeah.
But
I love Pepe.
one of those things are at the time, and right now, if you bought them when we originally bought them, like you're still up.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
still up multiple.
you're
I
still
think there.
up, yeah.
I have one right now. It's you gotta talk about floors and shit. It's on the floor at like 9 ETH, but like it's still like if that sells.
Yeah.
I got like a
That's-
9x.
Yeah, that's actually
What
legit
about in
money.
dollar terms?
That summer,
Yeah.
that was pretty high.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
Pegz was before the big.
Yeah, maybe
big
you
bump,
might actually
yeah.
be about even like a.
I mean, an ETH
ETH
right
was
now
probably
is
like
back to
2,500
2100,
probably.
so-
Yeah. I
Yeah,
have a
that-
really stupid question before we get into other stuff. I don't know why
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. When you check the price of crypto, do you check it in pounds or dollars?
I check it in dollars, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't check it in pounds.
Have you always been in dollar mode since trading? Like, is it just easier?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone quotes ETH in dollars, so I check it in dollars. I do when I look at my portfolio, I do have that priced in pounds.
Yeah.
But when I refer to prices, always dollars. It's just like,
Okay.
it makes more sense.
I don't know why I was thinking about that, but it was on my mind.
When you're getting in the NFT space more in 2021, were you already aligned with Mando on just like, we're going to do this together? Or did you both come in separately, look at it and be like, we have all this experience together. Why don't we just combine forces?
That's a very good question, actually. I think we both bought our first ever crypto in 2021, so we were late to the crypto game. I bought Bitcoin Jan 21, and then he got into NFTs, and he was like, you should look at this stuff. And I was like, I just got my head around Bitcoin. Like, I don't want to buy JPEGs.
Like, fuck, a whole nother thing.
Yeah, so I wasn't with him on day one, and then I saw he bought a Hackatow piece for 18 grand and sold it to seed phrase for 250 grand in the space of 3 weeks. And I
You're
was
like, okay, that's interesting.
yeah, I was like, okay.
You've piqued my interest. Okay.
Yeah, that you piqued my interest. Exactly. So, so I started getting involved, but we weren't doing it together. We were discussing what we thought was good, and we weren't like bidding against each other or anything like that. But we had our own portfolios. But there were times when it got competitive. When I was like, it's like the apes, right? Like
the ape story is the
the original was like, I was like, dude, mint. I was like, literally have all these WhatsApp messages to him. I was like, do me a favor, just mint some, just like do it, and he wouldn't do it. And then it worked out as a good trade for me. And then you kind of get this like competitive thing, and he had other things as well. Like he actually got back into the apes after he told me to sell them, and then he crushed it on that. And I was like, damn, that's really annoying. So we felt like instead of having this like competitive thing where we were kind of like not trading against each other, but it's like, why don't we just do it together?
You always, because I feel like when you have someone who you're good friends with, like you want to see them succeed, but it's also fun to beat them and shit on them. And
exactly.
Like me and my buddies are in Telegram. It's like, oh, you sold too soon, you fucking idiot, or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you want them to do well, and it's not.
That's exactly right.
So it's like a fun competitive.
That's 100% right. Yeah, we wish each other well, but there's always the fun element.
And when you were at Barclays trading together, that seemed, you said you're on a team, so it's like you're trading.
Well, you have you have your own personal P&L, so it was the same thing there, where it was like we were sort of competing against each other there as well. So we've kind of been in that environment for a long time, which is why I think we feel comfortable working together, because we know we've done it successfully for a long time. But yeah, it took us about 6 or 7 months of trading separately to be like, let's just do it together and let's just join our stuff. And
and then that was during. Was that after? So Degenz is like what I think of in the summer.
Yeah.
Did you start collecting after that came out then? After 6 months. I'm like trying to like in my head, I'm like looking at the 2021 calendar and I'm like June, July. I think that was around when Degenz came out, and then I'm like 6 months after April was October, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But that summer is when we got to know each other. I hosted a space for the Degenz.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was just like the first time I got to talk to you, but not talk to you, but sit down and actually talk to you. And it was like, oh, I just thought you were like the punk. Like I just remember you as your punk.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, now I'd never think of you as your punk. You're one of the few people who like.
I actually couldn't even. I don't think I could pick your punk out at this point.
Oh wow, there you go.
It's been so long that you've been your RektGuy. I'm not sure I could do it.
I know,
the crazy hair, the red one.
I had the one.
Well, you're the one before that.
Purple hat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you was the crazy hair one. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
That's the one like in my head.
That's the one that sticks.
Yeah.
I liked that one. That was a good one. The Ed Sheeran punk. That's what I called it.
The Ed Sheeran punk. I feel like with any artist though, like you have to use your profile picture. Like you.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. If he had a punk as his PFP right now, I'd be like.
Yeah. Dude,
but no, it's like you're RektGuy.
That was a problem with Degenz, because like we made Degenz and I was like, I don't want any of this shit in my PFP, and neither did Mando. And then Mando one day was like, dude, you have to have a Degenz as your PFP. I was like, oh, but I want to have my punk. Like, but I think that's why when I made RektGuy, I was like, I just want to just make something that I would actually have, and then I can like have it as my PFP. And
the one thing I love about what you've done is like the Degenz people have always been along for the ride. It wasn't like Degenz came out and you're like, oh man, like we should have did the art differently. And then you're like, all right, new project. It was like, all right, like anyone who had Degenz has been grandfathered into like everything you've done. Like I minted, I don't know, 10 or 20 Degenz. One point I was giving them the artist for free because you were doing a monthly contest and buying like a few pieces from artists in the community. Those artists, some of them held the pass or held the Degenz. Then they got this pass. And then this pass gave them like a RektGuy and the tabs.
Yeah.
Some of them minted like rare RektGuys, got like 5+ ETH from it, and it's like, wow, I just like gave them that Degenz for free because like I knew I would never use it as a PFP. And I really like. What have you like learned along the way, and like how do you think about providing value to the people who were there, early with you? Because you clearly always thought about that. You weren't just like, oh, I'm gonna do a new thing. It was like, oh, well, how do I make sure that the people who have been supporting me the longest are still, coming with me?
Yeah, I think that's, look, in this world you have things that are rugs, and then you have things that are failures, and I think the difference between the two of them is that rugs are when people intentionally mean to screw people over, and then you have this like middle ground where it's like, I didn't mean to screw people over, but maybe I wasn't thinking about it the right way, or wasn't giving enough thought to her making it work, or bringing them along for the ride, or whatever.
Or it just didn't work out.
Or just didn't work out. Yeah, exactly. So for us, like, look, Degenz didn't work out. It was the art. We actually think the art's still hilarious, by the way, and you should like.
It's hilarious.
It is
art,
funny.
You should browse through it one day.
but it's not like what you want your profile to
Exactly.
picture,
Like,
right?
you don't
it's
want
not going on your tombstone,
Yeah.
but it's funny.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, we realized we messed it up, and it was like, well, we do want to be in the space, and we like the space, and we feel strongly about it, and we want to be net contributors, not taking away from it. So it was just like, how do we just do something different, but keeping it within the Degenz like ecosystem or community, whatever, and think of an idea that would work, and then just be like, cool, this idea, it's not going to be a paid mint. It's just going to be for everyone who still owns a Degenz, and then we get another roll at the dice, basically. And that was the idea. I mean, we still haven't done, away from like my personal art that I've sold, we still haven't done a paid mint since the original Degenz mint in July.
No, 100%.
2021.
Yeah, you had regens, which you could burn the degens to get regens, and they looked a little more brutal, a little more serious, a little more like they could kill somebody. So if it was your PFP, you look a little harder. But then after that, or maybe around the same time, you start writing reports for projects, which kind of like separated what you were doing from other communities, where you could just go into the Degenz Discord with your Degen and just get a whole bunch of data, like basically briefs and summaries of all the top projects. So like, why is Cool Cats popular? I don't know. Let me read the Cool Cats report, and then they like dive into Klon, dive into the history of the cat, all that stuff, and like. Now I think you probably have like what, 200 or 150?
300 reports now we have. Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was insane.
So like
The people, is it just you and Mando writing them, or do you have other people on the team?
We have a team of analysts now that write them. Originally, it was just Mando and I writing them ourselves.
Yeah,
that's how we started out doing it. And,
and I imagine has it mostly been people like offering to contribute? At this point, I feel like you get some random guy who's like, "Hey man, you don't have one for this. I fucking love this project."
It gets a bit. I mean, we have a good team of objective analysts, and we compensate them through the royalties we generate, and all the royalties we get, we just put it back into the projects basically, and it helps us fund things and keep things going. But yeah, it's wild because it's around this time last year where we started like carving out this idea of what we wanted it to be, and now we merged with Flips Finance, we have the whole analytics platform now, and all the reports and everything. So I think our thought was like, how do we make someone want to own a Degenz? It's not for the art.
But what else is, what are the Degens like? Like they like getting knowledge to be a degenerate about, and then what is your background from? You have all this knowledge of trading different markets, looking at the macro environment, applying that to a niche market that is still impacted by those levers of whatever interest rates and stock prices and whatnot. Yeah. And it was like a unique perspective that not that many other people were getting anywhere else. And then you had the smart idea to just do the path, where you were basically like, if you own the Degens or the regens, you're going to get airdropped a pass. And then this pass, since you never really wanted the Degens or the regens for the art anyway, like the pass is where the utility will be. Yeah. And then if you want the regens or Degens for the art, like they'll always be there. Feel free. Yeah. And I thought that was really smart too, because then you gave somebody more of like a fungible way of quantifying like, oh, this is like the value of the utility versus like, oh, it's my Degens. Yeah. And then I'm sure maybe that also makes it easier to trade them because they're just like a pass rather than anything else. Yeah,
I think so. I think it got to a point where Degens and regens like started having some value again, and people were like, why? And they were like, what's
why is this worth 0.3 or 40?
And they're like, what's the difference between a Degens and a regens?
And you're like...
And so we realized that the branding was off because it wasn't a PFP project anymore.
No,
it was like
you had to burn multiple degens to get a regens, but like the floor price is the same.
Yeah, and they were like, shouldn't regens be higher? And we were like, yeah, but like Degenz is like the OG project.
It's the history, the provenance of it.
Just look at the art.
Exactly.
But then like RektGuys, I feel like really hit at a critical time.
Yeah.
People were feeling wrecked, and then it has become part of like a bigger zeitgeist.
Yeah, well, it's also such a unique set of artwork in the PFP space, especially at the time it came out. Now obviously you got derivatives and shit, but like at the time there was really nothing like that, and still really isn't anything that is super close to it that's notable.
Yeah, I felt like with that one, I felt like I had that feeling around, maybe it's probably around January last year actually. We had like Cool Cats, Alien Friends, like Cool Man Universe, and I was like, all this stuff looks the same. It's like
plushy wannabes or something.
Pastel. I was like, look, life isn't all like sunshine and rainbows. Like, and I was like, instead of having pastel colored backgrounds, wouldn't it be cool to have something that's like a black background and like neon colors, which is very like in your face and hard hitting. And that was kind of like the inspiration of creating it in that style, I think, which is already in like the style of my artwork anyway. Yeah. And then there wasn't anything that was animated. I was like, I know on Twitter you can't have animated PFPs, but you can on Discord. You can on Coinbase NFT.
Shout out.
You can on other. I mean, I always use it on Discord.
Yeah,
and I think it's nice. I wish more platforms did it like Discord, where you just hover over it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then it shows. But then it's not just like you have X copy just blasting you in the face all the time.
That's the best way to do it. So yeah, I just but it was also just meant to be like it was never meant to be what it became. I just wanted to do it as a fun art project, and I thought of the idea in January, and I just kind of did it on this as like a side project over the weekends and evenings and stuff, and it took me about 4 or 5 months to complete it. And by the time I did, and by the time we launched it, then everything just puked and crashed. And it was just, the timing was just...
You never thought like while you were making the art, like maybe I should be selling some more in case this is like prophetic. Like maybe
there are some weird prophecies in some of the stuff that I've drawn. Like there's that piece, the Professional Degen 4 piece that I did in July last year.
Is that with all the...
It's got all the screens, but one of the screens is like the FTX screen with like a big red candle. And this is like 3 months before FTX collapsed. And I don't even remember drawing it.
No, so I was like, oh, what would be funny? Like Binance, FTX.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Well, it's funny because I think I took a picture of that piece last night and tweeted it, but I just cropped out the goblin. It was like blue chip NFT, the goblin. And it was like, last week they just rugged all the metadata or whatever, and people were bitching about it. It was just like stuff like that's the work, and you're like, oh shit, like I didn't even realize. But when we were at the thing last night, it was just up there, and I was like, this fucking goblin. But it's very like, it's a piece that really captures the culture at the moment. Like I think a lot of your work is like that, where you look at it and it's like the guy golfing and fucking 69 balls left. It's like there's like meme numbers everywhere. Like the news article headlines are always something funny, and people are gonna look back maybe in like 10, 20 years and get an idea of what we thought just based off of like what you showed on the pieces.
Yeah, I love the internet culture side of things. Like I love all the memes. I love zeitgeist, and I'm not the only artist who does that kind of stuff. People does it literally every day.
Yeah.
RektGuy has elements of it in his work, but I just find it like I'm a very nostalgic person. I just love capturing a moment in time and having it in there, and then being able to look back on it. And now, like with that piece, like here we are, almost a year later, being able to look back and laugh at it, and I just love that. Love that kind of feeling, basically. So, and you can't put it into like every single piece of part of your work because then it dilutes the effect of it. And it's why I haven't really done like a completely new professional Degen piece this year. And there's been a lot of stuff this year that I could put into it.
Do you have like running lists on your phone where you're like, these are the ones that I need to include, like in the next piece, nice. Like this shit.
I literally have like a notes on my phone. Every time something comes to my head, I bet I write it down.
You have to offload it because then it's like when it comes time, you need that fucking list. Yeah. You're somebody who I feel like who has like a pretty prolific output of like, you're a very productive person. What does like a day in your life look like? Is it like I'm assuming it's a wide variety depending on like if you have events or if you're grinding art or if you have, I don't know. You're somebody who just does stuff every day. Like you're on Spaces every day. You're I'm assuming creating every day. You're also trading. Like, what does your average day look like?
Yeah, it's they're very busy, almost too busy, I would say. And I think it's getting quite a lot now, so I need to figure out ways to
We need to do a little delegating.
delegating it a bit, exactly. But usually, if I'm back home in London, I usually wake up around 6 a.m. or something like that, get up pretty early. I've always got to get a workout in before I start my day. So if it's like going to play golf or just like hitting the gym or whatever, I usually just do like a workout class or something like that, and then get to my desk. And the first thing I do is I read like the news, I look at crypto prices, NFT prices, then I write that daily summary thing that I do every day. So
Yes.
that's a really good way for me to start my day personally, because I like just get up to speed with everything. So I do that.
What time is it about when you're done with that? Generally,
If I don't play golf, it's usually out by about 9 a.m. London time. If I do play golf, it's usually out maybe like 2 or 3 hours later. And then, so we have Canary Labs, which, yeah.
9 a.m. London time is like 4 a.m. for us.
4 a.m.
Yeah.
Eastern
Yeah.
time, yeah. So it's usually, I think the US guys like it because it's usually
it's
out.
live when you wake up.
Yeah.
It's live when you
That's
wake
big.
up.
That's
Yeah.
big.
So it can be the first thing a lot
If you're,
of
if
people
you're
read.
if you have that out by like 6:30, 7 a.m. Eastern, like you get everybody in America.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good. And we have it's now on an email distribution as well, so people like to read it on email, which is good. So we get that out, and we have all the Canary Lab stuff I'm doing with Mando, and we have another partner called Ben, who's like the behind the seat, the third silent partner of Canary Labs. But we usually have like a call to run through everything we're doing. So like, here's what we're doing on RektGuy, here's what we're doing on Degenz, here's what we're doing on the other stuff. That usually lasts about 1 to...
So does Canary Labs own the IP for all of those projects?
Yeah, so RektGuy is CC0, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess like the Rekt logo itself has some IP to it, or the Rekt
Or
brand.
like I guess like runs the operations.
Yeah. That's all. It all falls into Canary Labs.
Okay,
basically.
that's what I was
So,
going to ask about that. That's
yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it all falls into Canary Labs. And there's a couple of other things that we have there as well.
Do you have any other employees there other than the three of you?
We do have one other employee based in Portugal, in Madeira. And then we have other people who we work with who aren't like official employees,
Contractors
but contractors who are pretty close. So yeah, that call usually takes 1 or 2 hours because it's always like a lot of ideas and then spitballing. So we have to like do this and do that, and by then it's usually about like, I don't know, 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. my time.
Okay.
Then I have to do all this admin stuff like respond to emails, schedule meetings, and then by the time I do that, I feel like I haven't done any actual work that I want to do. It's Rug Radio, so I've got to do that for like 1.5 hours. That's when I usually spend some time trying to draw things because I can like multitask.
Yeah. When you're on the spaces, you can know like Faruq's probably driving the bus.
Yeah, Faruq and Mando lead it, and I just
And
kind of like
then
pitch
you might
in.
come to some market commentary.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of times I'm doing the night show stuff. There's like time to do some mid-journey prompting. Like,
Yeah,
let me get some of
exactly.
this going
Exactly.
because it's time in the day where it's like, must they, hey, OSF, hey, Ovie, hey, D's, like,
Yeah.
for this thing, it's like, you can at least turn off some of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel like, so you're done with Rug Radio. What time is it?
That's 5 p.m. my time.
So
Then I have all my calls because everyone's in the US, and especially like on the West Coast, 5 p.m. my time is like 9 a.m. West Coast time. So whether it's like doing podcasts or trying to talk to like potential partners like Degenz or RektGuy, whatever, like, so I'm usually done. I don't know. For a while I was like finishing at like 9 p.m. just on calls, and I was like, this is too much.
Not-
So
yeah.
I've given myself a hard stop at like 6 p.m. If it's important, I'll go to 7 p.m. And then after that, it's like I'm just gonna like switch off and
you have to spend some time with your wife. And,
yeah,
like,
spend time with my wife. Like we'll go out for dinner and stuff. And if we're watching TV and chilling and stuff, then I might just draw something on my iPad because it's like relaxing. I don't find that like stressful or like view it as work. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just like I had this constant feeling where like it gets to 5 p.m. and I'm like, fuck, I've just done nothing on my list of things to do because I have to do all this other stuff. So it's pretty intense, but to be honest, I love it. Like,
Do you ever try to wake up and create at like 6 a.m. rather than?
I actually did that today.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. But I did that today, but that was because I did like a Rug Radio stubs drop thingy. And
I just saw that.
I had to finish that.
Oh.
I actually finished it 3 days ago, and they were like, we really need it today. They said we really needed it yesterday. So I was like, and I got home. I actually ended up staying a bit longer yesterday. And I got home about midnight. I was like, I'm just going to sleep, wake up at 6 a.m., finish it off. So that's the only time I've done it. But I think I'm definitely... My perfect creation time, I would say, is about 9 or 10 a.m., like a nice sunny morning. And I don't have any calls or meetings for the day, so I'm really like feel relaxed, and I can just like chill on my couch and draw things. That's the time when I'm like, I have done my best stuff, and I feel like most inspired and creative.
I want to ask a bit more about Rug Radio.
Yeah.
So you're doing trading stuff, you're posting on Twitter, you're dropping all this stuff. Where along the way did you just kind of like stumble into also doing this like more like voice radio show essentially? And was that something that you had previously had interest in, or just kind of happened?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I started doing random Twitter spaces and stuff, mainly after D's and Beanie back in those halcyon days of summer 21.
One day I want to get Beanie on this podcast.
We're gonna get him in Antigua.
I actually think we could do it. I like, not kidding.
I think you could.
He still likes me.
Yeah.
And because like I don't really talk about him at all.
Yeah, he loves you.
Yeah. And so I think you could do it.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think if I just send one message, it's like, "Hey, I said some fucked up shit. I'm sorry." Like, it'd probably be good. maybe that is.
It would be an incredible podcast. It would be totally unhinged. Sorry.
So much. I mean, yeah, not to get into Beanie, but there's like probably like 15,000 messages in my Discord.
He's a sharp dude
between me and him.
Shit. Wow.
When nobody knew, like. This is like December 2020, January 2021.
Yeah, this is when Top Shot was...
We were just like in the Punks Discord.
Yeah.
And we were talking about everything. Like he was really early to Luna, try to get me getting into Luna. And like he was deep into Top Shot super early and was like buying art box. Like we were just talking about everything because the NFT market at that time was so small.
Yeah.
That, like you could go on the Punks Discord and just know everything that happened.
Yeah.
It's like before hash masks were out. Like it was just like a different time.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened to him because he at that time, like he was always a little controversial, but he was like a pretty normal dude who like obviously was very smart and knew what he was doing. And then over time, he just turned into like fucking Vince McMahon. It was so weird. Like
there was like a time early on where like the red flags were going off, where he was like telling me about these devs he has in like South America and how he like pays them pennies and then like runs these casinos that kick people off who are winning players like almost immediately.
Well, for what it's worth, that's what every casino does. So that's not
yeah. It was just like it was like first week or two of getting to know him, and this is like, oh, this is what I do to make money, and I'm like, that feels weird.
Yeah, it feels kind of wrong.
But anyway,
all right. So back to Rug Radio.
Back to Rug Radio.
So you hear Beanie talk, and you're like, wow, I'm inspired.
Yeah, I want to be that guy.
You're like Beanie.
You're learning Spanish so you can hire some South American devs.
You're like, shit, there's some alpha here.
Exactly.
Roll bit might just be. Wait. I plead the fifth. But anyway, Rug Radio.
So yeah, I kind of enjoyed doing it. It was a great forum for discussion and stuff, and people were on Clubhouse, which was obviously successful for a while then. But then when Mando and I quit our jobs, we had all the spare time because we didn't have any projects then, and we were kind of like we had Degenz and we were trying to build it up, but all the spare time, so we just were like, let's just do like a Twitter space every 2 or 3 weeks and just talk about the market. So we started doing that, and we didn't really know Faruq that well, to be honest with you. I had a couple of interactions with him. The first one actually wasn't a good one. Like I think I was calling him out for something like this.
That was my first interaction with him too.
Yeah,
that seems to happen sometimes with Faruq.
He's a very polarizing person.
Yeah, he is. And then we got talking in DMs and stuff, and he apologized, and then we ended up becoming friends, but. He was like, hey, I'm starting this Rug Radio thing. And Mando and I didn't really have big profiles then, Like, we were kind of, like, known within some people, but we weren't, like, as big as... I think I had just got to 10,000 followers, and Deez was already at, like, 150 or whatever. So that was, like, the difference in between, like, the profiles then. And Faruq was already at 200 or whatever. So Mando and I, like, this will be good because right now we're doing these spaces and we get, like, 20 people coming to listen. If we do it on Rug Radio with Faruq, then maybe we'll have a bigger audience and it'll be a good platform for us to just discuss stuff. So we started hosting our own show on Rug Radio where it was just the two of us. And then Faruq said, hey, I have an idea. Why don't we make it the three of us and let's just do it every day? And at first I was like, man, I don't really want to do like commit to a space like every day. That's intense. But over time it's just we've figured different things out. It works quite well, and it's just ended up being like part of my day and a part of my life, really. Like a lot of my life does revolve around that, and it's nice. It gives you like every day, because like when you're sitting at home and you're just working on your laptop and my room's empty, there's no one else there, you kind of feel a bit lonely. and you don't have the same. When you're in a trading floor, there's like hundreds of traders around you, and it's like a lot of camaraderie, and you don't have that in this. So that for me is like, and now we do it on video and stuff. Like I get to see Mando's face, get to see Faruq's face. We can like laugh and joke and
The
things of
video's
visual
better.
interaction. Yeah, it's a good
video's
part of my
huge.
day. I think.
I've been enjoying a video a lot
Yeah.
more, just even for
Game
the night
changer.
show.
So I don't want to get too much into the specifics here, but
Yeah.
so you guys do this on Rug Radio?
Yeah.
Do you guys are you paid by Rug Radio, or do you have equity in Rug Radio? Like, what's the kind of agreement there?
That's a good question. So Rug Radio is completely decentralized as it stands. So Mando and I bought loads of Rug Radio NFTs, and by virtue of that, we have a lot of Rug token, we have a lot of the NFTs. The Rug Radio also had a team of advisors. So at some point last year, they appointed Loxley, who's now the co-CEO with Faruq. They had Mike Kriak, who's CEO of Consensus Mesh, and Mando was the third advisor. So initially that started out as being an unpaid advisor role that then turned into a paid advisor role for Michael. And it was kind of like the Rug Radio core team. So there is some compensation from that because Michael was involved in and this is just Michael, by the way, this is not me.
Not Canary Labs. Just, yeah.
No, well, I guess it's kind of Canary Labs because like Michael himself doesn't take the money and we send it to Canary Labs, and Canary Labs itself has an advisory arm, which is what the third guy Ben does mostly. So we kind of branch it under that. But Mando's involved like a lot of the day-to-day operational stuff, like directional stuff.
So he's spending a lot more time on Rug Radio
Way more time
operationally. Okay.
way more time than I do, and for that he is compensated. But Rug Radio has a system where if you that rewards its creators or rewards its hosts, whereas if you get sponsorship, the hosts are able to retain. I can't remember if it's 85% or I think it's 85% of the sponsorship revenues, and then 15% goes into the DAO. So from that perspective, when we get sponsorship money, we are able to take that money. And for us, again, we put that into Canary Labs. We use it to buy back our Degenz access.
Yeah, you guys have bought back a lot.
Yeah, or buy RektGuys back or whatever. Like,
or host these events.
Host these events. So we don't take it out for ourselves.
Well, yeah, you obviously pay yourself or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But we just view that as like, let's just keep it all in this bucket of like corporate stuff, and it helps us with our projects. So that's how the compensation works. But it's great. It's great for like, there's like there's a French show, and those guys have just got sponsorship, and those hosts now get paid to create. There's like a really big Chinese show as well, and
that's really cool.
It's a cool way to like, podcasting and hosting is a thing. It's a big thing in the world now, but people have found it tough to monetize it. And I think with Rug Radio, it's like you can go to someone and say, I'm a Rug Radio host, and this is a brand now, and people will listen to it. It allows you to get sponsors, then it allows you to make some money from it. And I think it's a really like wonderful system to be able to actually reward creators.
For the people who aren't aware, on average, how many listeners do you have a day?
So in terms of live listeners, like at the time of listening, I would say it ranges between, usually ranges between 200 to 500. And if you have
that's a lot of people.
Yeah. If you have
there's certain days too. It's like 1,000.
It could be 1,000 plus on big days, but the total listens are like, 2, 3, 4K plus, because people listen to recordings and stuff.
Nice.
So
and it's nice too, because the YouTube, it's always interesting to me. I never understand this, but like, it seems like for whatever reason, the space recordings will have like just as many views as the YouTube. And I just think to myself, like, who the fuck is listening to the space again in the Twitter app versus going to YouTube? Because like, having the screen up and seeing everybody and then seeing screen shares, and when you go into market updates, like seeing fucking charts and stuff, like it makes a huge difference.
I think a lot of people, and this maybe includes me sometimes, when you're working at the same time, maybe you want something on in the background. And then you just have the audio.
But it's like the Twitter spaces are so, like they're not chronologically sorted. It's like YouTube, it's just like go to newest and, it's all right here. It's like Twitter space, it's like, I bookmarked that tweet so that I could see it later. And it's like a lot of people do it though. Like it's in the numbers, because you'll go back a day later and be like, like over 1,000 people listen to it overnight.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
I noticed that with like the night show sometimes, where it's like you look at the number, you're like, like 750 people tuned in on Twitter. You go to bed and you're like, 1,500 people listen to it. So that means 750 people listen to it overnight, but through Twitter. And then you look at the YouTube and you're like, why is that not getting to me? I don't know. But how do you think, like, going forward, you have such a busy day, like you're at the point now where you have to like cut out things rather than like add them. How I guess you're not really going through the process. I was about to say, like, how are you starting to go through that process, or what are you thinking about, like, there? Because you basically said you wake up at 6 a.m. and you're on calls till like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And then you spend like 2 or 3 hours and then you just run it back. Like, is there a point where you're like, enough is enough? Like, or like,
I think so. Like, I'm definitely not one of those people who are like, don't sleep 2 hours, work, your whole life, work hard. And to be honest with you, like, I've done that. Like, the 10 years I spent in banking, I tracked my sleep for the whole time, and my average sleep was like 5 hours a night. And I have many like 2 hours and 3 hours, and like I used to be like that. I used to be the guy who's like, yeah, like I'm never gonna sleep, I'm just gonna work really hard. And
so this might seem light.
Yeah, so well, I think I just feel like I did that, and I did get burnt out. And when I quit, the whole point of doing that was like to have a better lifestyle. And it was good at first, but then just
it compounds, and all of a sudden
it all compounds, and suddenly doing all these things. And I've recently, I have, to be honest with you, felt like that. It's like, I need to take not that I need to take a break, but I need to just change my day where it's less stuff. But I don't want to drop things, because I do really believe strongly in all the things that I'm doing. So it's a tough one, because the answer is like, well, hire more people, have more people, right? But we don't want to raise VC money for we definitely don't want to do it for RektGuy, and maybe it would make more sense for like if you're building a platform or whatever. But it changes things a lot, if you're starting to like raise money, and then you can use that to hire people. But it's a different ball game then, whereas right now we kind of feels like a family operation. It's just like mom and pop just doing things like handmade, and we just kind of we're slower than other people, we're slower than Yuga Labs and all these guys, but we just get things out in our own time in a fun and friendly way, and I like that vibe.
And I feel like there's a lot of heart in what you guys do as well, where you can feel that it was you and Mando who did it. It wasn't some contractor who you hired to plan a party or something. You guys did it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to lose that magic. So it's a tough one, because how do we then make our lives less busy? But I think the answer is just finding people in the community to help. And
do you think you'd ever move to the Caribbean or somewhere where the time zone is more in line with either Pacific to East Coast? Like, I feel like that would be the hardest thing for me, being just busy, but being busy off the quote unquote main hours. It's a good question. So the nice thing about being in Europe is in the mornings, because the US is not awake. Nothing.
No
really
one bothers you.
Yeah, no one bothers
amazing.
you, and I can go work out. I play golf every week. Basically, it's one of my things I've been trying to do this year, and I have time to do that. And you have a bit of time to think to yourself before the madness kicks in. But downside is you finish late and you feel tired at the end of the day. I do sometimes spend some time in the Caribbean when we go see my wife's family, and to be honest with you, the day usually finishes by 2 or 3 p.m. and then it's kind of chill. So I don't mind that at all, and I can probably still get away with doing the morning stuff. But I met her when I lived in New York, and she actually wants to move back to the US. So I don't know. We're thinking of maybe spending half our time there, half the time in London, and try to figure out something like that. But it's getting a visa and green card and all that stuff is
Yeah, my fiance and I lived in Spain for 2 months this past summer.
Oh, cool.
And I feel like since their culture is so late anyways with lunch and dinner, it was amazing to work East Coast hours. We'd get up at 10, I'd have a couple hours. I'd basically every morning answer all my emails, all my messages from the day before, because no one is fucking awake.
Yeah.
And then we'd go get some coffee. We'd go get lunch at 2, get back at 3. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time. I'd have calls till 8:30 or 9 p.m. and then we go get dinner, and it was awesome. It was a really nice lifestyle.
Yeah.
But if you're somewhere where it's not normal to eat dinner at 9 p.m. every day, it'd be tough. It'd be really tough.
Exactly. 9 p.m. is late. A late dinner in London time.
Yeah. Yeah. We did. It was funny. We did it in Madrid, and we were like, wow, this is amazing. It's such a nice lifestyle. We're going to try to do this when we go back to New York. And all our friends are like, I'm not fucking eating dinner at 9 p.m. There's no way.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like with us, we were in Croatia. That was the only taste I got of it. But I just found myself up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'm missing out. There's stuff going on.
You have to turn off the FOMO.
Football, watching the Monday night football game, it's at fucking 2 a.m.
Dude, summer 21, when it was the bull market stuff, and all the mints were ended up, and you'd be we're minting at 3 p.m. Eastern time, but then it was delayed for 5 hours, so you'd be there at 10 p.m. I really hope this is going to be a quick one. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. You've been waiting all this time to mint it, and they're like, oh, we're delaying them in.
We're delaying it.
Yeah, I was like, fuck's sake, I've been up all night waiting for it.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I feel like if we could just have one time throughout the whole world, and it was just like it's physically impossible, but it would be a way nicer experience.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like trying to think about what to ask questions on, and I'm like, I want to ask about
I have a
like
couple
radio.
questions. I can ask
like-
random shit. So we have to talk about the Bored Ape stuff a little bit. I feel like.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So, but I'm not going to ask the boring questions. I have more random, unhinged questions. So, what was it about Bored Apes in particular that like led you guys to take such a like high conviction kind of bet on it, like at that point? Because I feel like you were one of the people where I was watching that, and I've just fumbled generational wealth with Bored Apes. I sold 2 at like 3 and 5 ETH, and I was like, sweet, I made some money. Awesome. Like, these are stupid. I like my punks. And watching you guys where you're like, yeah, we have 70 whatever apes and we're not selling them. And I was just like, these guys are smart, but I don't fucking get it. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, what was that conversation like? What made you so convinced?
Yeah, it's a funny one because I felt like when we started, we were, we got to know you guys and all the punks and stuff, and we got that. And when we went down the ape path, we were like, oh man, these guys think we're like really dumb, really stupid or something. It was like within that realm, it was a bit contrarian, but for us, it started with just like, look, we understand the whole digital identity thing, we understand the PFP thing, and right now it's really just punks. Like you have 10k punks, but really you have like 6k punks because 10 of them are lost or whatever, and they're quite expensive. So like there is absolutely room for like a second place. We really felt there was room for a second place. So that's how it started, and that's why we decided to buy loads of them, because it was just when you could see this massive bull run was happening in the summer, and we were like, instead of just buying loads of punks, let's just buy loads of apes, because like punks could do a 2 or 3.
It's like the beta to
the beta trade, yeah. But apes could do more than that. You could just see there's this community and stuff. So.
What price were apes when you had like 72?
Yeah, so like after I minted them, I sold all of them, and then we reacquired. Originally, it was 69 that we reacquired, and they were about 3 or 4 ETH, so they weren't like super cheap. But
it's a pretty big bet. I mean, at the time, were punks 20, 25 ish?
Punks about 20, 25, yeah.
Because
exactly.
I made a similar call. I remember buying an 8 for 7.
Yeah,
and that was around the floor.
Ones.
Floor might have been 5 or 7, and punks are like 25, and it's like kind of seems more likely that this ape will double than a punk will. Let's buy one after I've been shit talking them all these times. But anyway, you were buying them for $5,000+ a piece.
Yeah, and then they got to like 30 to 35, and to be honest with you, we were thinking of selling them. We were like, we should probably get out of this. But then we reached out to Gordon and Gaga and we said, hey, like we didn't know anything at all. Literally sent them a Discord message and we're like, hey, like we own loads of apes. Like, would you guys mind having a call so we can like ask you some questions? And that's kind of like what you would do when you were like working at Barclays. You'd like call the company and like try and like ask them questions and stuff and figure out what was going on. So, and it was right after the Gaio Siri thing was announced. So, honestly, we probably would have sold them in a few days if they didn't take that call. And so we called them, and it was like a Discord call. And I remember like we were still working at the time, so we left the office and we're standing on this like random bridge with like Mando's phone on speakerphone. They must have been like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? But and we were just like, what's the plan with this? Like, what do you guys want to build and stuff? And they're like, look, we can't really say much as to what we're doing, but they said that they had a lot of VC interest, and this was A16Z at the time, I'm guessing, but they didn't want to take it. They felt that Guy could like open some doors for them and stuff, but it was more just like the way they were speaking and the way they were presenting the information. I was like, wow, like these guys are like really switched on. And honestly, we thought they were like former management consultants, or like, I don't know, we thought, oh yeah, they must be like really big at like Sony or Active. Like we thought they were like really legit people, not just like 2 random dudes. And we're just like, so like, and I mentioned like things that I thought was the bull case. Like, oh, you could have like an Axie, you could have like a blockchain game, we could have this like idea of like a Web3 brand, and like all these concepts were very like new then. And they were like, yeah, like they were like, yeah, like that's we're trying to like we believe this can be like a big brand and like this idea of like Web3 brands. And just the way that they spoke and how confident they sounded, we both came off the call and were like, wow, fuck, like these guys are the real deal. And not only do they know what they're doing, they understand how big this opportunity set potentially is. And to be honest with you, that was a game changer. After that, I was just like, shit, like I could just see in my head, and they never told us anything about like what the actual plans were, but I could see in my head like these are the
Just knew they weren't fucking around.
yeah, these are
You probably had
yeah.
talked to a bunch of other project founders by then, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was just not, it was not the same. Like these guys just had this insane vision, and that gave us the conviction really. And you know, like then you had rumors coming out about ApeCoin, you had the mutant stuff, you had the other side stuff, and you know that leaked deck and all that stuff. And we were like, hey, yeah, like you know this stuff is starting to make sense. It fits into it, and the ApeCoin stuff was out for ages. And I remember like the ApeCoin thing. I think people thought it would just go to zero or you know be like immediately get dumped. And I was like, it can be a much higher market cap than I think people realize or give it credit for because you have A16Z backing it, and you have not much supply released initially. And it's just one of those things like it doesn't make any sense, and the fact that it doesn't make any sense is
the bull case.
Is the bull case, yeah. And
Yeah, like of course it'll be maybe not overvalued, but of course maybe it could be
but yeah,
valued.
no,
ridiculously
overvalued. Like it overvalued. You're right. Like
So how did you play the ApeCoin drop? Because that was like a
Well, yeah, I want to know that, and I also want to know: did you have a strategy going in?
Yeah.
Or was it just like we're doing it live?
so. The strategy. I'll start the strategy. The strategy was we had suspicions of an ApeCoin drop. Then you started seeing the rumors. So we're like, we know they're going to do this, and then we heard from a few different people like, yeah, like this thing is coming. So our strategy was let's hold the apes. They'll rally into ApeCoin, and then we'll sell the ApeCoin, and then we'll keep the apes. That was the plan. And so when ApeCoin dropped, we were trying to work out what the market cap would be and stuff. And to be honest with you, I was coming out at lower than where it was.
It was kind of crazy when it launched. It was a little...
Yeah, it was insane. But so we had all our apes on a multi-sig, and there was no... the wallet connect thing wasn't working, so I had to claim it directly from the contract. So I went to the contract, and the contract's called... the function on the contract is called claim grapes. So I'm there, like, basically on net worth, like, on this multi-sig.
claim grapes.
I'm telling Mando, like, I've got to just, like, put this contract into, like, Gnosis and claim it. I have no idea if I'm going to rug the whole thing or not. It's one of those, like, you know, those films where it's like cut the red wire, the blue wire.
Yeah.
So, like, on the call to Mando, kind of like shaking, and it's like, okay, click, and waiting for the transaction to go through, and then it went through. So we got the ApeCoin, and then, you know, at the time we were like, oh, let's sell a little bit and keep some. And then later in the day, we were like, I was on the phone with Mando, and we were like, look, man, like, everyone's going to sell this thing. Like, it's probably not going to go up 20%. And we were like, it might go up 20%, but it won't double. So let's just sell it and take the money. And we hadn't taken any money out of NFTs, so it made sense to do it then. So we did. We sold it when it was like around price of 7, which was like about $7 million in total, which we sold. And then we're like, yeah, it won't double. We'll be fine. Maybe 20%. Thing fucking like...
Went to what, 20?
Went to like 25, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, how much money did we leave on the table? But
Well, you didn't. So did you keep enough to mint like other side stuff?
yeah,
or-
so I did. I actually bought ApeCoin back at 7, but nowhere near the size that we took out, and Mando didn't. And so I used that to mint, and then I actually did manage to sell it in the 20s, so that was a good
Nice.
trade, but on way smaller size, like way smaller size. So it wasn't as meaningful, but yeah, like I realized that mistake, and to be honest with you, I kind of have, you know, obviously we've sold all our apes now, we sold a lot of our NFTs, and we sold the one thing where I have a similar feeling about is other side. It's like we sold like some good land in other side, and I think we sold 1 or 2 coders, and I'm like, that's the one where I feel like there is some upside there. Maybe it doesn't work out, but maybe they do just nail this game, and suddenly it is like something really good.
My coda is my only Yuga asset. I
Yeah,
had it.
I think
since
that's the one
The
to
other
own.
side mint, but like in my head, there's this really weird world where like the game is good and like
Yeah.
the coda's useful, and like the ape owners think I can't use my ape in this game, but I can use a coda, and then like a coda goes up 3 or 4x. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think that's that crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe unlikely.
I feel the same way, and that's the only, like, you know, I still feel fine with everything that we sold.
How do you
but
feel about the vessels? So now you're
And
able
what is it, heavy
to-
metal and all the
yeah,
other shit that they're doing?
there's too much now. Too much for me
Yeah.
to follow. Too much for me to
So
follow.
there was like a sewer pass, and then I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to the pass.
That's why we sold the other side stuff.
I kind of feel a
but
little
I'm
lost in the
regretting it.
sauce.
Yeah, I think it will probably work because there's enough people who want to stay on top of it. But for me personally, or for us, it was just too much, which is why we sold. But I was like, shit, maybe we should have held it. But
Was there like a part of you while the blur farming was happening that was just like, you've seen a lot of big sellers throughout NFTs, and usually there's a big impact on floor price, and the blur liquidity was like one of the first times there's ever real concentration.
It's hard to say no to that.
On the bid
Absolutely.
side. And then was that like the big thing where it's just like we
Absolutely.
can finally exit and like literally not move the price?
yeah.
We have to.
That was literally it. It was actually way more of that than having a view on the price action. I think,
Yeah.
it's like you own all this, you have all this, it's like the joke, right? Where it's like, guy doesn't buy a house but has like his net worth and apes, monkey JPEGs or whatever. And that was like kind of like us to an extent. I mean, it wasn't fully us, but
you had 70 apes and
Yeah,
like
we had a lot-
a decent house, but like not a house that is even worth like 10 apes or 20 apes.
yeah, exactly. It's just like, it was kind of like that. And people on our old jobs were like, oh, we can never monetize this because if you try and start to sell it, everyone would be like, oh shit, like these guys are selling their apes, going to create the floor. And we were aware of that. Like, we knew that, and we thought maybe we can sell one every month or just slowly do it. But
Sounds like
it's
my
gonna take
NBA
6
Top Shot
years.
account.
yeah, exactly.
It takes 6 years to get
Exactly.
out.
So when all this liquidity was in Blur, we were watching it, and one day Mando was like, dude, we can literally sell all our apes. I think the floor was about 71. He was like, we can sell all our apes and just not even move the floor price and get all this liquidity. I was like, yeah, that's insane. But then we just didn't really think of selling it. But then they went to like 78, and I was,
And they're like, we really need.
yeah, we were like,
All
yeah,
right,
we were like, I was
well.
like, in our old jobs, like if you have all these risk positions and you've made good money on it, it doesn't count until you've actually got the money, right? Because you're marking your book every day. So if someone came to you, if you made money on something and you had all these positions, someone came to you and said, hey, you can collapse like your entire balance sheet and 0 positions, and it'll cost you $100,000. You'll lose $100,000. You'd say yes. You'd be like, yeah, done. Get me out of it. And it was like, this was that, but we were making money on it. So we were like, yeah, it's just a no-brainer. We just have to take it. And it was like stressful when we did it because we had them all in different wallets because we were like staking. We had some bend down stuff. And I said, transfer them all to this wallet. We transferred them all to this wallet. And there was like 57 there and we had 72. And I was like, man, like, where are the other 15 apes? He's like, I don't know. I transferred them all there. I was like, so did I. And we're like, what the fuck happened? And we realized that when you unstate them from Bendao, they get sent to your hidden folder. So we were like, that feeling of relief, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I thought we, like,
That's really funny.
yeah, I thought we like lost a bunch of them.
Well, so go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say like, I feel like for most people, when an influencer, a big thought leader sells, it's like a bad event.
Yeah.
I felt like, and this could be me being completely biased in my friend groups and the groups that we're
Yeah.
in, like, I felt like everyone was happy for you, or most people were happy for you. Did you get a lot of hate or vitriol from the ape community, or is my biased perception right, where like in general most people are like, you guys fucking nailed
Secure
it?
the
Like,
bag. Let's go.
Yeah. No, it's a good question because I think that's something that we were worried about. We didn't want people to feel like we're ditching the space and all that kind of stuff because we're absolutely not. And I was actually surprised by people just saying, hey, that was a great trade. Like, you guys nailed it. Like a lot of congratulatory stuff. I think there were some people saying like, oh, these guys dumped their apes on Blur or whatever. But it wasn't anything like, there was no like hit thread on us or anything like that, And I think the way that I view that is I really feel like ever since the Degenz thing, we spent so much time in this space trying to be productive or like create education for it, where that I think people realize that we have good intentions, and at the end of the day, like, we're entitled to take profits like anyone else is. And
for sure.
we've never done the thing where we've like promoted stuff and take paid minutes and dumped on people and pumped up. We've never done any of that stuff, and part of the reason for that is because we've come from a very regulated background where that's bad, and I think people who do it maybe don't realize it's bad at first, but it's a blotch on your record, if you like. So we've never done any of that stuff anyway. So there wasn't really anything like, what can people really say? Like we didn't like one day say, oh, like apes are going to go to 150 and then dump the whole thing. We just like held this thing for a year and a half and then sold it, and that's what we did. So it's kind of like unfuddable. I mean, you can say, yeah, they dumped all their apes in one go, but like, to be honest, that's not us. We weren't the ones bidding for them, right? If you're bidding for something, you got to be willing to take
That's
it.
a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing that on Twitter now. We won't name names, but there are certain people who were bidding who maybe are not bidding now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys are speculating. Like, I always say it's like picking pennies up in front of a steamroller, but it's like a lot of those bidders were just speculating on some.
And they're putting up a
Gambling.
lot of money. They're risking a lot of capital for it too.
Yeah,
A lot.
Like
For a
serious money.
completely like nebulous, unknown future pay date, anything. Just like, oh, I think I could get some money in the future, and I'm willing to risk tens of millions of dollars
like
for it.
thousands of ETH.
Yeah,
It's wild, isn't it?
It's totally
It's
insane.
wild.
You mentioned briefly as you were talking through that you've
Yeah.
sold a lot of NFTs, a lot of your NFTs recently. Has a lot of that, outside of just the Bored Apes, come from this added liquidity from Blur, or are there other kind of like theses that you have about the space right now that have influenced that?
Yeah, I think the most of the stuff we sold was all PFP stuff, basically, and we kept all the art. So
Yeah.
all the one-of-ones that we like some additions that I bought a Punk, I bought a couple of Fidenzas, and I think
Fidenza sold for under 50 the other day.
yeah, I saw that one sold for
41.
82 grand the other day, which is even below that. So
Oh yeah, that's like
yeah.
40.
That, I think that may be in the
Yeah, I think it was
It's
the
like
41.
40.
Yeah,
48th. Yeah,
yeah, it was like 2 days ago. It was a
Yeah.
41.
Well, people
Fidenza
know
sale.
that everyone thinks these Starry Night ones are gonna get
Yeah.
liquidated. So like, especially on the floor, like maybe spirals, micros, certain
Yeah.
pallets are still getting premiums, but like a golf socks that's just clean is like
how many do they own?
I think they have 30.
Yeah,
Oh wow, okay.
And then they own
They have a lot of
good
art
amount
box
of
stuff.
ringers too.
Yeah.
Not 30 ringers.
no, I saw their liquidation sheet. I actually probably have it in an email. I can send it to you if you want it.
Yeah, I'm curious to.
It was
curious
interesting.
to-
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard rumors that it was supposed to go at like the end of March, but it's clearly not.
No, I tried getting in contact with the liquidators and stuff. It's fucking impossible. It's like
Yeah.
it's a shit show.
It's tough. It's
yeah.
They bought a lot at the top. Like they came in that summer and it was just like
Yeah, they
1,600
caused
ETH for
part
a
of that
ringer.
summer,
Yeah,
didn't they?
and so selling the most predominantly PFPs.
Yeah.
Is it mostly? It's funny to hear you say that as someone who has a PFP project.
It's probably why he's selling the other one. It's just like
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I don't disagree with it. It's just
Yeah.
funny to hear because
Yeah, of
I
course,
knew
but-
that was going to be your answer.
Yeah.
But I felt like it's a good one to ask for the pod.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, what's your thinking there? I mean, I know the answer again, but I'm curious what you're thinking.
Well,
is.
I think I think the difference between between RektGuy and these other projects is RektGuy's not a utility thing. It is supposed to be a piece of art.
I've gotten a damn near more utility from my RektGuy than 95%.
Well, I think that's the thing is there's no like promise of future utility.
There's no promise.
Yeah,
It's
there's no
just a
promise.
surprise every once in a while. If
Yeah.
hey, you get to see a woman have sex with a corn dog.
Multiple corn dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway. Utility.
Yeah, there you go.
We were talking about why selling your PFPs before we brought up the corn dog visual. I'm sorry.
But yeah, it's just like, a lot of these guys have raised at really high valuations.
Yeah.
And they have these conquer the world type roadmaps, and you realize the teams that are executing them weren't strong enough really
No.
to do it. And on top of that, I think everyone's bag holding a lot of the stuff, and this liquidity was created by Blur, which wasn't there before, so people were able to start selling things. And I'm just really bullish on ETH here. I'm really
Yeah.
bullish on ETH,
Same.
and I feel like, look, I can just own ETH, which I think could potentially outperform a lot of these PFPs, and it's more liquid. I can buy and sell it whenever I want, and I don't have to think about it. Like, if I buy ETH and just put it in a multi and forget about it, I don't have to be like, oh, like, does Kevin Rose have a good reputation, and are they going to be able to like execute the proof conference next year so
Yeah.
that the floor price goes up? You don't have to worry about all that stuff. And look, if you nail a PFP project or an NFT project, you can make 1,000 decks. You won't make that on ETH, but when you're playing with larger size, I think it's easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
So it was just that really. It was just to
Totally.
like, let's get rid of these headaches. Not headaches, but let's get rid of some of these.
It's unnecessary risk.
And also kind
Yeah.
of feels like a job sometimes where you have to follow. It's like,
Exactly.
oh, fuck, I didn't claim this thing. I didn't do this. And now I just lost out on what would have
Exactly.
been the multiple, and now I'm not getting that anymore.
Well, we talked earlier about like trying to lighten up the workload, and I think
Yeah.
getting rid of those distractions allows us to focus more on the stuff that we want to do and
Totally.
create and build in the space. So, that was the other thinking behind it, really.
Yeah. I also feel like I've always kind of felt like PFPs, the ones that are like heavily utility kind of focused, especially after they've raised VC capital and you have like a private company like a Yuga, you're really stuck serving two masters.
Yeah.
Where like, Bored Ape holders do not own equity in Yuga Labs. Like at a certain point, there will probably be decisions or already have been that are made where what is best for Bored Ape holders is not what is best for Yuga Labs. And it's like this interesting contention. And then like ApeCoin, not to only pick on them, I think this is a problem for like every PFP project that is in this similar position. But like, you know, Yuga Labs now has Bored Ape holders and ApeCoin holders who in no way are tied to each other other than this strange farming of more ape coins.
Yeah.
And then also a company that has private equity money. And so it's like these three different groups of people who you're trying to make all of them happy, but they all have different incentives. And it just feels like this kind of like very easy to collapse crazy tower of people you owe things to or feel like you owe things to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now it's even more like you're saying. We got fucking the sewer passes with the heavy metals, with the fucking vessels.
Legend of Mara.
We're upgrading. Like
there's a lot.
Yeah, there's like 100,000 vessels.
Yeah.
That I don't know
It's
what
for
they
all
do.
it's for all the hundreds of thousands of people in NFTs. They have to.
I mean, they're building for a community that we don't have.
Yeah.
Which, you know,
Maybe it's visionary. Maybe in 5 years we'll be like, oh fuck, man, they did it.
Yeah.
and that's great for all of us.
Yeah.
Like they really fucking.
Oh wait, I want to talk about Mando's not here to defend himself. I want to talk about his contentious Yuga tweet.
That's exactly what I just thought of.
Yeah, right when he said that.
Right when he said
that. All right, was he being 100% serious?
I think there was some elements of him being serious to it. Was he? Did he mean it in that hyperbole? I don't think so. But I think his point was like, look, if you have what's the biggest thing in the space fail, they've probably failed because they've either messed up or because there's not enough demand for it. And if it's the latter thing, then that's bad for everything, basically. Yeah. So, you know, like if you go with all their community and fans can't pull off something like this, then it's like, well, you know, who else, how is anyone else going to have a good shot to do it? So I think that's the point he's trying to make. But yeah, the way he phrased it was like,
yeah, the way he phrased it lent it to being dunked on. I agree. Like the underlying point of like, hey, it would be bad if Yuga went broke.
Yeah,
I like completely agree with.
I mean, it'd be pretty bad if like Apple went under.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like it's not great for everybody else that Apple's got.
Yeah, it's just like if you said if Apple goes under, we'll never have cell phones again. Cell phones will be set back 10 years.
That's like how he phrased it.
Yeah. And I was like, Mando's a smart guy. He doesn't mean what he said here.
Alexander Graham Bell.
But it's too easy to make fun of him.
It was too easy. Yeah, that's a great copy pasta.
Oh man,
So
we are at like 2:30, by the way. I think.
Shit. So we haven't even really talked as much. I think about the art side, artist.
Yeah.
We got a
I've got
lot
of time. Yeah, if you want to go.
Yeah, if you have more time, we have all time in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'd love to hear a bit more about like you're doing Degenz, you're doing all this stuff. When was it kind of in that whole period of time where you were like, hey, I'm doing all this other stuff, but I also think I want to be selling artwork? Was that prior? I'm not sure when you like minted your first piece.
That's a good question. I never wanted to like really sell art to become an artist and like make money from it. I think you know, I used to create a lot of art when I was younger, and when I first got into NFTs I wanted to start creating things, but I just saw how good the shit was, and like you know, in 10 years it moved on so much. I was like, man, like I'm never going to be able to make anything anyone's ever going to want. But I started getting like itchy fingers and stuff. I was like, I just want to like draw again and like, you know, get an iPad and see what it's like to draw and Procreate rather than drawing on a piece of paper. So I did it in like September 2021, and I think the first thing that I minted was just like picture of, I guess, like what is now known as RektGuy, just like holding this coffee mug that says GM, and I was just like playing around with like putting some candles and stuff in it, and just I was like, yeah, whatever, like it's just I'm just did it to do it, and I just minted it, and I think someone bought it for like 0.5 ETH, and I was like, oh, that's quite cool. Like someone actually, I didn't like tweet about it much or anything. I didn't like shill it 'cause I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm buying this because it's like an influencer thing. And the guy like who bought it just like, yeah, I just really liked how it looked. I was like, oh, that felt really cool that like someone liked the way it came out or looked and they wanted to like buy it.
Were you drawing the character before you minted him, or were you like I could see you at your old job like doodling this character?
That's the first time I drew it. Yeah, I just moved to a different role, so I was trading Middle Eastern credit, and I was like trying to learn
That's
about.
what we all do.
Yeah, as you all do. I was trying to learn about Tunisian politics. I was like, man, this is so boring. So I just started, and you can actually see like I've got the original thing that I drew, so you can see like I start writing down like Lebanon Prime Minister, then like Lebanon Deputy Prime Minister, then there's like this RektGuy. so I like.
And you still have that?
I still have that. Yeah,
That's
actually,
sick.
I left it in the office when I left, and then I was like, shit, I should get that back. And I asked one of my friends if it was in my desk still, and they actually got the original
awesome.
thing. So I still have that. And then I was like, oh, wouldn't it let me try and recreate this on like on an iPad and just see if I can do it. So that's where that character came from. It wasn't called RektGuy or anything, but I just liked. It was meant to be semi-autobiographical, so it's like, hey, here's me like trading or like doing some degen thing, but like it's a skull because skulls are cool and
Badass, yeah.
It's translucent because I think the ideology behind it is like, well, when you're in a corporate job, you're like there going through the motions, doing this shit every day, but you could sort of become a bit soulless and you lose yourself a bit. And I think that's where like the skull, death, translucency, which means like no soul, like that stuff came from really. So yeah, then I just started putting that in like everything that I drew really.
And then that came out a couple months after Degenz, like that piece.
Yeah.
So at what point after that were you like, wow, I could just do the art for RektGuys like myself? Like that was pretty quickly after.
Yeah, I think
I'm trying. It's all a blur in my head,
Yeah,
but I'm
no,
like, I think
basically,
came out like maybe like a year after the Genesis.
Agree.
Maybe I don't
Anything
remember.
from like when comp farming started to like 2022
July.
sometime is all just like a fucking blur in my head at this point.
Yeah.
I have no idea what
I feel like
it
it's
was.
when you're looking back at like T-Rex, like dinosaur fossils, and you're like, oh, this happened in the Cambrian explosion. This happened in the Proterozoic era. Like that's how I feel like with NFTs, but it's like a span of 2 weeks. So it's like
It was actually last week.
there was like, oh, the generative art explosion of 2021, and it was like 6 weeks of just like $5 to $10 million per drop in a Dutch auction.
Yeah.
And it's like that's how I think about it. So I'm like, all right, you're making it like Toads just came out roughly. You put this 101 out, somebody buys it, they're like, I like it. You're like, shit, like maybe there's something more.
So was it
here.
just fixed price or was it an auction?
it was an auction like zero. I always did my auctions at zero reserve because I was just like whatever. And
Was it on Foundation?
it was on Foundation, yeah. And then I just like, you know, I did one every 2 or 3 weeks. When I thought of a new idea, I just like draw it, and I think they just started to slowly trade higher and higher. And then I think what really changed it for me is when Mooncat bought one of them. And then you know what Mooncat's like he'll buy one, then he'll buy another, then he'll buy another, then he'll tell the whole world about it.
And now he has a thread.
Yeah, and then he has
And
a
now
thread.
he has a thread of a thread. It's
Yeah, exactly.
27 tweets
Exactly.
about. He knows more about you than you do at this point. Like he just wrote up your whole biography in a thread, and it's like this guy right here. But no, Mooncat bought a few.
Yeah, but I was, you know, like I think you know, his style is definitely can be contentious, but you know, at the same time, he was someone that just like originally bought one-of-ones from me because he liked them, and there was no promise of anything then. And he bought a few of them. He bought, you know, like 4 or 5 of them for 1 ETH each at the beginning, and then I think after that, people started to see. He was obviously, you know, told, you know how art works. You tell your friends. And
Oh, 100%.
And it just started to
Mooncat's
go
very
higher
good
from
at
there.
it. I
And he's
think
very good at it, yeah.
the only person. So I think a Mooncat is like the yeah of all NFT markets. So like yeah was very, very, very good at selling narratives for one-on-one crypto art.
Yeah.
And Mooncat is kind of like the more degenerate version of him.
Yeah, I see that.
Who does it for one-on-ones, editions, open edition burns. Like it's all. But it's very similar. Like he's very good at sharing narratives repeatedly.
Yeah.
Like he got us to buy like a Batsu piece in a sense where he was talking about it, drew my attention to it. Then I started talking to the artist and was like, "Oh, we need this."
Yeah.
But he brought it and then showed a bunch of people like, "Hey, this is sick shit."
Yeah, exactly. So that was
And that was before Super Rare, or was that?
That was before I was in Super Rare. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I think then I just applied to Super Rare. I met the Super Rare guys when I was in Denver. And it was a bit of a weird one because I didn't want to just be like, oh, I've spent all this money on Super Rare, put me on. So I just went through the normal application process and just sent my video and stuff. And then I just told Super Rare, I was like, hey, by the way, I sent an application. And they didn't approve it straight away. It took me like 2 or 3 months to get on, just like it took most artists back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I had pieces in Super Rare. And then it started to spiral. And I think the moment where it really took off was when 888 just FOMO'd into one-on-one.
Chad.
Yeah.
As he's known to do.
Yeah. Which
Wonder how
Mooncat sold to him, by the way, as a Mooncat. It's my Super Rare Genesis that Mooncat bought for 11 ETH and then sold to 888 for like 82.88 ETH. That's when ETH was like 3.5k or something. So it was like, that's still my all-time.
The royalty from that auction is almost the price that the initial piece sold for.
Yeah.
That's kind of a mindfuck. So how has it gone from then, or like how's it been since the massive sell? Because like I saw you at work at Art Dubai,
yeah,
and like
Yeah, that was sick.
That was
Talk about
cool.
that more.
Yeah, that was cool. So I just got speaking to these guys called Art in Space, and they had this full like immersive 360 display, and they're like, "Do you want to do a piece for it?" I was like, "Sure," but I've never like done some. And I always find this with the art stuff because I don't have like a career in it. When someone asks you to do something, and most of the times I say no, but when it's something really cool, I'm like, "Yeah," but like I've never done this shit before, so I'm gonna have to figure it out. And I only draw from my iPad, so I'm like here, like drawing on my iPad, like zooming in massively to like create this huge thing. But it ended up working out really well. I had to like make it into a video and use Adobe Premiere and all this stuff that I'd never used before. So that was a really good learning experience. But it was cool. Like I think art needs to be displayed in a good way, especially for this crypto art stuff to take off. And so anything where someone's like, we're gonna have like a good display and like gonna present it as like a contemporary art thing and not an NFT thing, I'm like, yeah, like that's what we need for this space to grow. And so yeah, I just did it, and it was they had an exhibition in Dubai during Art Dubai, which by the way we should all go to next year because it was really sick, and I think there'll be more crypto NFTs.
I feel like there's
forward.
more and more of an art scene going on in Dubai. We talked to Brian Brinkman a bit about it. I think he
big
was
crypto
there.
scene. A lot of OG art blocks and crypto guys are in Dubai.
Yeah.
as well, so.
Yeah, Kira.
Taxes will bring you places, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Funny how that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I've never been in the Middle East. I know I'm like a pothead. I'm a little like,
Literally
Yeah,
zero
yeah, I
drugs.
might get-
Yeah, zero drugs there.
killed if I show
You should
up.
do your like 1 month.
Yeah, like for Art Dubai.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Dubai's a cool city though. It's interesting because it feels it's so sterile in a lot of ways because there's not a ton of like culture that's kind of been there for forever, and it's very wealthy.
Yeah.
And it's so much of it is synthetic. Like so Ali's parents lived there for like a year, and so I went and visited, and they were like on the Palm, and so like it's literally like fake land that they made that like is shaped like the palm fronds. And it's
like
just like
in the middle of the water, right?
yeah. It's like every house is on the water, like this massive
It's
place.
like I think I've seen it. It's almost like you can like ride a bike through like the whole thing in like a big half circle or something, and then they all go out like this, but then it's connected by a half circle. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
I
I think that's right. Yeah. I was just trying to visualize what you were
I think
saying.
like
but no,
I feel
that's
like
right.
Instagram, like it's like
Yeah.
the tourist.
That's
or,
definitely
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the one.
But yeah, so it's just like, it's a cool city. It's really interesting because just like there's no, there's some amount of like the Middle East culture there and all that, but a lot of it just kind of feels like other people from all over the world, all around in a way that like feels, a lot like London or New York, where it's just very, very multicultural in that way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that like native soul to it, kind of. And so I could see it wanting to bring in more and more art to add more character and a lot of that. It's
I
interesting.
mean, speaking of like native soul too, do you or your family ever go back to Bangladesh?
So my parents were just there a couple of weeks ago, actually. I've not been back since 2008.
Okay,
So a long
it's
time.
been quite a minute.
Yeah.
You feel like a yearning to go back at all? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we mainly used to go to see my grandparents, but they passed away 15 years ago. And on my dad's side, my mum's side, they actually live in the US. So,
So there's really
but
not like
funny you meant to bring it up because my cousin's getting married next year in Bangladesh, so we'll be going back for the first time in a long time.
that'll be fun.
Yeah,
I'll
bring
I have
NFTs to Bangladesh.
Oh yeah.
that's like another question. I heard something about like NFT Bali. I think is like
I feel like that'd be fun.
Yeah,
it's a thing coming up semi soon. Someone asked me if I was going to it this week. It might have been at like one of your events where someone was like, "Hey, you ever hear of NFT Bali?" It was one of the Australians that I was talking to. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's like a 6-hour flight to Bali." And I'm like, oh man, that must mean it's like a 30-hour flight for us.
exactly. With like 3 stops or something like that.
But I mean, anywhere where we can get an excuse to travel, to talk more about this stuff.
Bali, I've never been, but it looks sick.
I've been once. It's amazing. It's really cool.
Like I feel like we should go to Dubai.
You could see Kylan Zoo there.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the first thing you
Hang
did?
out with the boys.
Yeah.
had a powwow.
Yeah.
VVD, come in.
Yeah.
We-
After we relaunch FTX, then we'll relaunch 3AC.
Yeah,
We'll get it going. Oh man.
Do you feel like optimistic? Like you came into the space at a time where like shit was just starting to really get crazy,
Yeah.
and now it's quieter. And you're someone who's hosted more and more events at each event that I've gone to. So like you get a good taste of the space. Like, do you feel generally optimistic about everything that's going on, even though like you just said like, you sold most of your PFPs, sold the apes. Like, how are you looking differently between like, you know, the PFPs that were sold and
Yeah.
like your outlook on this space over the next like 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, look, I'm definitely a
Haas?
glass half full kind of person, and I actually spent a lot of my time when I was trading being bearish, and even though I was right, sometimes I actually never made the money for it. I was like, if I was just bullish the whole time, we'd make way more money. So I changed my way of thinking, and I think the same thing with the NFT space. I think, look, like you sell things sometimes to take profits, and you reallocate that capital into something that you think will do well. And for me, that was in this case ETH, and I think the NFT space will do really well and will thrive and will be amazing. But you really have to differentiate between NFTs taking off and doing well versus your bags taking off and doing well. And you know, the notion that NFTs become a huge part of our lives in 10 years doesn't equate to the same thing as like apes should be worth, you know, $10 million dollars
Yes.
in 10 years, right? Does it equate to famous cultural historical art pieces being worth a lot more in 10 years? I think potentially, yeah. I think there's an argument to say yes. So it's just a case of like reallocating things to express that view. And for me, it's like you either want to like, it's just like the age old thing. You either want to like buy the gold or sell the shovels, right? And I think or build the shovels and create them, or buy the shovel, like what shovels, whatever it is. Like you want to be in the shovel zone. And I think
the tool industry.
Yeah, the tool industry. And I think that's what we're trying to like lean towards being in more in terms of like where our money is or where our focus is. And I think a lot of projects will do really well. I think people who come up with smart ideas, who are innovative, who are artistic, creative, will have really, really successful NFT projects that will do very well. It's just very hard to pick them because you're picking out a lot of different things, and I think it's like picking a needle in a haystack. And you know, I'm losing my like faith in my ability to pick those things now.
Needles,
and, yeah.
That's how I felt after seeing Nakamigos. I was like, oh shit, like
I
don't get it. This is what
I'm out of touch.
Same, yeah. Literally, I'm out of touch, and you know, maybe that's how you felt about us when you'd been in the space
with the
for
punks
2 or 3
and
years.
apes.
Yeah, and maybe now I was thinking that the other day. Like now I'm like, what Deez was like when I was like the class of 21. And it's like now the class of 21 is no longer cringe. Like the class of 23 is like super cringe.
I mean, everyone's looking like, I literally have people in my comments who are like, yeah, like Deez talks a lot about getting in the punks Discord and like meeting people and talking about the space. And like, that's me in the Nakamigos Discord. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know if like I would call the Nakamigos Discord the epicenter for all NFT conversation. Like the punks Discord literally was in its time, but like everybody's trying to justify the narrative of like the upside on this thing could be infinity.
Yeah.
And like the less they know. One thing I want to ask you about, you talked a lot about ETH.
Yeah.
Do you hold any Bitcoin over ETH, or are you strictly
I'm strictly in ETH because I do think ETH will outperform Bitcoin in the long run. I know it hasn't been that way this year. Mando actually owns some Bitcoin, but he is a bit more of a short-term mindset, so I think he had that trade, and then he may even switch back into it now. I don't know, but I don't own any Bitcoin. It's not because I don't believe in it. I just think ETH will outperform. It's as simple as that, really. I just like to be concentrated.
Yeah,
I feel like that's one thing you learn is concentration.
Yeah.
come back and forth on this. I am now, I think, like 40% liquid Bitcoin, 60% liquid ETH. Fucking, that was a month or two ago I made that call. It was more on the ordinal stuff, and I'm like, they're like doing stuff.
Ordinals are cool.
Bitcoin, like I don't love the ordinal dude who like created them, who's like taking a video of his camera app as he dances through the lens and like shit posting about Yuga and all this shit. But like the tech part was interesting. It was the first time in my whole time, I think, being in crypto, I think, that I thought like, holy shit, like Bitcoin actually did something innovative.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you know, you mint something on OpenSea or Manifold and I can go rug the metadata. It's like that shit's inscribed on that SAT and like it's not going anywhere. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. So that was the moment where I was like, let me just slide some back. And then there's the comment from the SEC where they're like, Bitcoin isn't, proof of stake is. And I'm like, you know, if they just say some dumb shit that causes the market to react stupidly, like, just want some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what led me to change. But it was for a while, from like 2020 up until like a couple months ago, I was only ETH.
Yeah.
And then it was very recently. And also, like, you look at the ETH Bitcoin chart, and it's just been like ETH has just been wrecking Bitcoin for like a couple years. And you're like, yeah, maybe they will like mean revert a little bit. I don't know. But I'm always curious because I feel like most people we talk to are mostly ETH.
Yeah, I'm all ETH.
Yeah.
I guess more questions about the crypto bear market in general. You said you bought crypto for the first time in 2021, right?
Yeah.
So this has been your first time kind of...
First crypto bear market.
Yeah. Has there been anything that surprised you that really stands out, or is it about what you expected?
I think, to be honest with you, you know what surprised me? I feel like lots of people have been through crypto winters and crypto bear markets, and there's a lot of information about it, and people talk about 2018 or like 2015 or whatever it was, and this has kind of been like the same thing, and they always say like, that it was really bad, but I either just held or I, DCA'd and averaged down, and then I made like a shitload of money on the next run, and I used that for like my thinking. I was like, okay, cool, like last year I was like, okay, I should just be buying as much as I can, or DCAing. I started DCAing too early. I started DCAing at 2,800, so... but
that's how it goes when you DCA.
That's why you DCA.
That's why you do it.
And don't spend all your money. So I DCA'd all the way down to like 900. So I got like some really good levels last year, and I was like, cool, I'll just do that. Hold, be disciplined, don't FOMO at higher levels, like don't sell too early, and that worked really well because of listening to other people. So I guess what surprised me is like the amount of people who've been through multiple cycles who just don't do that.
Yep.
And it should really just be the most easiest thing. It's like, all you have to do is like write down the prices you're going to buy at, write down how much you're going to buy, have the money aside, and just do it.
It's just have a plan.
Yeah.
And then don't deviate from it. And to be honest with you, I deviated from it once in this whole time, and that was when the whole SVB thing happened, and I sold 100 ETH, and I almost sold a lot more, but luckily it was like inaccessible because I thought that was like really bad shit. And then the next day, I was like, oh, this is going to get resolved. And I bought back the 100 ETH and I lost 10% on it. I was so pissed because I was like, damn, like I did what...
you let your emotions get the best.
And that was the low. Like since then, ETH has like ripped 40% to 2,100, right? So I was like, man, like even like the moment when I finally break, that is the low. And I think that's, for anyone listening to this, like that moment where you're like, I'm breaking, like I'm going to sell or...
I'm abandoning my plan.
I've always found that's the best way is just counter trade yourself.
Exactly.
Whenever you're like, fuck, man, if it keeps going down, I'm going to really wish I had sold. When you're at that point and you're actually like about to click sell, that's when you're like, no, do not
stop doing it. Yeah, stop. Don't touch it.
Yeah, and I think the other good thing talking about like DCAing is like I had an instance back when this was like June of last year when ETH like flash crashed down to like 800 something, 900.
NFT NYC last year.
Yeah. So I was at a wedding and I like literally had money. I had like a lot of money in FTX, RIP FTX, but at the time in FTX, just like waiting. And for some reason I didn't have like an open order. I just like had a lot of money that was like ready to buy ETH. And I was like, it's going to flash crash at some point and I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
And I was at a wedding. And so like, I just wasn't able to buy it because I wasn't at my computer. And like, I think it's just another great example of like, yeah, you can have this idea of, oh, it's going to flash crash and I'm going to get the absolute best price ever. But if I instead just that entire time it had been going down, had been buying and buying and buying, I would have been better off for it.
Yeah.
And you could also just set the order on an exchange. Like if you...
Yeah, that was just me being an idiot.
If you had the money on FTX and you wanted to buy it at $1,100, you could have just been like, all right, here's my buy order for $1,100.
Yeah, it's it's also the greed of like, oh, what if it goes lower?
What if it goes to 900?
It's the comment that I think which has now become a meme, which is like, I'm waiting for the capitulation. It's like...
and it's really like, I think Andrew Kang or somebody tweeted like, you know, there's two types of capitulation. There's capitulation selling and then capitulation buying.
Yeah.
And that's like,
Very
you want
true.
to be selling into capitulation buying, and you want to be buying the capitulation selling. And it's like, there's like layers to it. Cause I think right now you're going to see the capitulation buying start to happen. If it hasn't already when ETH goes past 2K, because you had people who like it's going to 500, it's going to 300. Last cycle, it went down 90 whatever percent. So if I map that out 1-to-1 this cycle, the price is going to be like $276.9, in which case I will buy it all.
Did you guys see that thread I retweeted that I wrote in July of last year? You've got to read it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you got to read it after this, but it's basically like I just made up like a fictional story about someone who like sold NFTs and then like bought NFTs when ETH was really high, sold them when ETH was really low, shorted ETH at 900, but then like I did like the extended.
I feel like I might have read this.
It was so I wrote it last year, and the next part of the story was like you get really bearish and you short, you get liquidated, you don't touch ETH, gets to 1500, you're like, oh, I'm still really bearish, everyone's wrong. Gets to 2K, you're like, oh, like what the hell's going on? And then you come back and you actually turn bullish at 4K and buy it back. But
and then it goes down.
Yeah, but I retweeted that because I was like, everything that I wrote in it like weirdly has played out to the levels. But it's just so true because like, you know, people are like, oh, you know what? I'll wait till the markets are better to buy. It's like cool, but like when the markets are better, the prices are higher. So you're just saying you want to sell low and buy high, without realizing that's what you're saying. And it is so basic, but it took me, like someone who works in investment trading, years to understand that. You know, it's not an easy. It's weirdly
because it's not emotionally how you like. You don't agree with
counterintuitive.
It. Yeah,
counterintuitive. It's very
gonna
hard
feel
to
bad.
yourself. It's gonna feel bad.
Yeah.
It still feels bad.
Yeah,
like, it still feels bad doing it.
You've been doing this for a dozen years plus.
Yeah.
You've made the mistakes when you're 17, 16, 18.
Still
learned from it. You're in your 30s now, and you're still like, human psychology is a fucking bitch.
You're there when like last year when like ETH's hitting like 1,900. Okay, cool. Like put in another 10K, put in another 20K, and I'm just like, fuck. Like if it goes to 400, I'm just like, I've lost nine.
You're like, wait, am I gonna have another 30K to put in if it goes all the way down?
Do we just sell the house? Like,
what when your bank balance starts going down, you start being like, oh shit, like what? I don't know. I can take another 20% hit, but if it goes down to 50%, I'm gonna be like, fuck.
And then as you think about it, like, do you DCA out after certain levels? Like, okay, you're like, hey, I started buying in at 2,800. I bought down to 900.
Yeah.
You know, maybe when it hits like 2,500, I'm gonna take 5%, whatever. Like, do you have that in your head as well? And then, I mean, obviously markets change, interest rate changes, and then that changes momentum, and then that has a whole other effect. But like, I'm assuming you have some type of mental model of, this is up a lot, I gotta take a chunk out. Oh, this is up even more, I gotta take a chunk out. Because that's the second important part
That's what I'm really bad at.
DCAing. It's like you get a good bag and you get a nice cost basis, but it's like, how do you get out? And you don't always have that 8 moment where you're like, this is it.
I think the way that I structured myself after all this NFT stuff was like, let me take out enough fiat money that I'm never going to put back in, and I just like have it for like living expenses. And then this is what I'm going to DCA out of from the ETH that I have, and 5K I'm going to sell 10%, but then I'm just going to like go for it. 5K I'm going to sell 10%, 10K I'm going to sell 10%, so that's my next level. 20K I'm going to sell 10%, because I really, and you'll call me crazy.
No, I mean, I think
you're sitting with the right people. No,
okay, I really think ETH is going to go to like, and it's not going to be this year or probably not
like
next
100
year.
ETH in my head is like $1 million. So like when I look at that right now and I'm like, oh, I can buy something for 100 ETH, or like I could buy 100 ETH for 210K. I'm like, this looks like $1 million to me in a few years. Like, I don't know if it takes 5 years or something, but
and I think that there's like something that we haven't actually like said the words of, but just like having a long-term mindset where like you have this conviction of, I think that this will go up over time, and I want to be in this position, but I don't need it to be tomorrow. I'm not doing this because I need to make a 10x tonight so I can pay my rent or something. Being in the position where you can say, I don't know when, but I really feel that this will happen. It gives you such an advantage over the market and just like over the average participant who does not have that luxury.
Like, it could take 10 weeks. It could take 10 years. Like, you don't.
Well, the thing is, you hear all these stories about, it's like, oh, hey, my mate made like 100 grand in 2 days from this.
He bought Shiba.
Yeah, and people wanted.
He long Doge on the Twitter.
He had Elon on alerts, and then when Elon switched the icon to Doge, he took his mortgage, and then he went 50x long on Binance with a VPN, and then he cashed out 50 houses. Like, it's so simple.
People want to make a quick buck without understanding that, you know, you have to be in it and, you know, kind of like grind it out a little bit and spend some time believing in your trade. But that's how I think people make generational wealth, and that's how, you know, all these Bitcoin guys that crushed it, like, that's how they made so much money. They just they didn't sell early. Like they held on to it, and they were smart and patient about DCAing. So
Yeah, there are definitely times where I just don't let my winners run. It's like 50%, or it's up 2x. I take 50% out. It doubled, and then it's like, holy shit! I just watched it run another 10x.
Yeah.
But we are coming up toward, I think, your hard stop.
Yeah.
We have a question we ask everybody. It is, if you were to write an autobiography, what would the title of it be?
I would say I would call it My Life in My Head.
My Life in My Head.
Yeah.
What is some meaning behind that?
I think, and this is probably true for a lot of people, but I think everyone has like a perception of me, or like they might think this or OSF this or that, and I think I actually probably view myself very differently, or view the things that I do or the outlook I have very differently to the way other people do it, but I'm not very vocal about it. I don't really say anything about it. So I think if I ever like wrote an autobiography, I'd be like, this is actually what I'm thinking in my head about the things that I'm doing or who I am or what I am, which wouldn't, I'm not saying it would be surprising, but it would be like a different angle than I think people really realize. And yeah, that's why I would call it that.
No, I love
Nice.
that.
I like it.
I can see where you're coming from too. Like when I look at you, I look at someone who's like very well rounded. It's like you do everything from like being generally fit to like liking sports, but then also being a trader, an investor, and then also a creator, but then also like an entrepreneur,
An entertainer,
like a businessman. But then like
you are. You can laugh at it, but it's true.
No, it's like you do.
You host a radio show, man. I don't know what
around
to
it.
say.
So it would be curious to see like how you look at. You know, I'm sure some of the things we think are strengths, you might look at and be like, oh, that's a fault in my head. Or like, there's like,
exactly. Literally exactly that. Like, I don't know, anxieties that I may have that people don't think I have, but maybe come off in a certain way where it just kind of works, but it's like, oh, I just kind of like winged that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe one day we'll have the autobiography and
hey,
all those will be
I'll be
revealed.
reading
Looking
it.
forward to it.
But dude, thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
I've
It's a
been,
pleasure,
I think
guys.
like 4 events with you this week.
Yeah.
Talked more to Hugh here than all those events combined.
100%. It's nice to be able to do it and chat properly.
Yeah.
for
Is
sure.
there anything, if you want to talk about anything, this will probably come out in the
This is
summer
gonna
at some
be
point.
like in a
so it'll be a
summer
bit.
drop.
But if there's
We're
anything
on
you
this-
want to highlight or anything?
No, not really. I think I think it's just nice to come out here and shoot the shit and chat basically.
Sweet.
So,
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
yeah, of
thank
course,
you.
guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All
This
right.
has been great.